Chuck, it's great to see you again. It's going to be an early start on Saturday, but we know the Tide and the Razorbacks are excited to meet on the gridiron once again. How's everything going?
Well, it's going well, Roger. I hope it's going for you, going well for you too. Sounds like Alabama's playing better now, and just in time for the Razorbacks to come to town. So we're looking forward to coming. I always enjoy coming to Bryant-Denny Stadium. Always enjoy coming to Will headquarters in Birmingham, and then bus over Saturday morning early.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing you. And let's talk about this Razorbacks team. Started the year with a couple of wins against Western Carolina and Kent State. Then you had a pivotal week 3 game against BYU, and that started what has turned out to be a 4-game losing streak. Just what have you seen out of this team over the last few weeks, kind of starting with that BYU game?
Well, I think the BYU game, very honestly, Roger, is the one that still kind of sticks in people's craw. The Razorbacks had chances to beat both LSU and Ole Miss. I mean, they were right there at the end. Didn't play so well against A&M, but had chances against LSU and Ole Miss, kind of shot themselves in the foot and missed out on perhaps, at least a win or two. So I do think it's the BYU game that kind of set the tone, and they just need to find a way to win a game. The good news is the schedule flips after this week, and they've got 4 of their last 5 at home. But, we knew this was going to be a tough 4-game stretch, and it's turned out to be just that.
Absolutely. And again, playing close in all of these games over the past few weeks, including against Ole Miss, it seems like the defense did a pretty good job shutting down a good Rebel passing attack.
The defense played really well. They had a good game plan, and Ole Miss's offense is pretty good. And to hold them the way they did, at least for 3 quarters, I thought was impressive. Ole Miss's offense took control in the 4th quarter. They kept the ball for about 10 minutes, and really did some things up front. They kind of put the game away for them. But Arkansas's defense has gotten better. They're struggling on offense right now, and the defense has got to keep them in games. I don't know that the defense can necessarily win them games, but it's got to keep them in games. And they've forced some turnovers, and they've done some things like that, and they're going to have to do that, I think, for Arkansas to stay in the games.
Who are some of the key playmakers on the defensive side of the ball? We got used to seeing Bumper Pool for so many years, kind of leading the way there, but who's kind of taking over this year?
Jaheim Thomas has really been a really good find out of the transfer portal. He transferred from Cincinnati, and he's the leading tackler, number 28. He's the leading tackler by a long shot, quite honestly. They've been able to rotate up front. Trajan Jeffcoat transferred from Mizzou, and he's been a big help. And they've got some veterans up front. They've been able to legitimately rotate there and, not really have much of a drop-off. They got a couple of transfers out of the portal in the secondary. But, for the most part, defensively, they've been solid. Not spectacular. They've bent some. They've not broken a lot. But right now, Arkansas tends to be 2 or 3 plays, 1 or 2 penalties. A mistake at an inopportune time. Those are the things that have kind of doomed them right now.
Then looking to the offensive side of the ball, we've seen KJ Jefferson the last couple of years put up really good performances against Alabama. How would you describe the season that he's having at quarterback?
Well, he's having a good year. I don't think that he's having a spectacular year. I think he's pressing a little bit. There's some issues up front. There have been some injuries. Rocket Sanders was a 1,400-yard rusher a year ago, and he's been hurt the entire first half of the season. And so the offense has been different. It's not put as many points on the board. I think there have been times when KJ's, tried to be Superman because that's what the situation required. They ran him 17 times against Ole Miss, and, he threw a pretty good number of passes too. So as he goes is kind of how the offense goes. Unfortunately for him right now, there have been 20 sacks in the last 4 games. And so there's not been a lot of protection there. He's been hit a lot, and I think he's probably frustrated in that respect. He does enjoy playing Alabama. He has, and lots of guys do. I mean, if you're a competitor, you get up to play Alabama. You do. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't compete in in his usual way. He's going to have to play a great game for Arkansas to have a chance.
What can you tell us about his supporting cast, and what's the status right now, Rocket Sanders at running back?
Well, Rocket's playing. He's still not 100%. And I think he would tell you that, and you don't have to watch very long to figure that part out. It's kind of been by committee. We had a veteran player named AJ Green, who was the starter for the first 3 or 4 games. We've got a sophomore named Rashad Dabinion, who's played a lot more lately now that Rocket's come back. But he's not 100% healthy. So that's hurt him. Now, they had a tight end, Luke Has, that I think was probably on his way to a freshman All-America season, who really, had emerged as, the kind of guy that I think could play really for anybody in our league. And he went down in the A&M game. We had a tight end named Ty Washington emerge against Ole Miss, caught 7 passes, and he'd not played a whole lot. So he was a bright spot. They've got new receivers, and that's had something to do with it as well. But more than anything, it's just been an issue up front, and they've not resolved that yet. And they can't run the football consistently. And until they do, none of these other things are going to work. And that's just kind of been their Achilles heel so far.
Does that really eat at Coach Pittman, because he was such a great offensive line coach for so many years? And in his time in Fayetteville, the Razorbacks have had that strong offensive line play and running ability.
Oh, I think it bothers him. Yeah, I think it first off would bother any football coach, because if you're not good up front, you're not going to be, you're just not going to be very good, period. But yeah, I think it bothers him. This is still the same coach that's had 36 guys drafted. And 7 of them in the first round. He knows what he's doing. Part of it is, when you look at the tackles, which are really important spots, you've got 2 first-year starters. Combined between the 2 of them, they had 0 starts coming into this season. And he added a transfer portal guy from Florida who's a good player. But I have started to wonder, can you bring a transfer portal guy in on the offensive line and have him have the immediate success that you can, for example, a player on the defensive line? I don't know. There's a cohesion involved there. They've had some injuries. They've had some guys playing hurt up there. They've had injuries to backups, which means, like in the last game, the starting 5 played the whole game. So that's kind of the spot that they're in. And that's led to pretty much every issue they've got on the offensive side.
Well, we're excited for the Crimson Tide and the Razorbacks in football, but we're now less than a month away from tip-off of basketball, and the matchups we've had the last few years between Nate Oates' teams, Eric Musselman's teams have been must-watch. Postseason success for both. Just what's the excitement level getting ready for basketball season to start at Bud Walton Arena?
Probably about the same it is in Alabama, at a real fever pitch. It's funny. I think for years, everyone that went through a period where they were good in basketball, us and Alabama had some periods too, you kind of viewed Kentucky as the rival. That was the big game. I'm not so sure Arkansas and Alabama is not the biggest game in the SEC right now in basketball. Now, I don't know how we keep having to come down there and you guys never have to come to Fayetteville. I don't know how that works. But I'll bet there's a lot on the line when we play at the end of the season. And I can't wait.
Absolutely. Should be fun. May see you again in Nashville or the NCAA tournament. Who knows?
I'll bet so.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to it. Again, Chuck, thank you so much for your time giving us great scouting report on the Razorbacks. Safe travels to Alabama. We'll see you on Saturday. Thank you.
All right, Roger. Thanks for having me.